So you Google NALP Canada. And you select the employers based on the city that you're applying to. Just be mindful that all the employers that you see in Velo Portal may not necessarily be found in NALP. You can always choose based on the size of the firm or based on the practice areas that you're targeting. Again, a good starting point is Velo Portal. So narrow down the pool of employers that you're applying to in Velo Portal and then come to NALP to see more specific details about each employer. You can see that you can find up to 30 employers here, so not necessarily the number that you will find in Velo Portal. So let's just use one employer as an example. You can see on the first page that it has a short description about the employer. You can find this information on each employer's website, so this is just a very short summary of what the firm does. The most important thing that you can find on this page is the name of the person you should address the cover letter and the rest of your application to. So you can see who the primary contact is and who the secondary contact is. You can also see the address of the firm. Now, why is NALP really useful is because it shows you the practice areas that the firm focuses on. So you can see here, for example, the number of lawyers that they allocate to each practice group. And let's say that you know that you have an interest in, let's say, intellectual property, and that's your primary area of interest, and you see that they only have hired 5 lawyers there. So in order to maximize your chances in being hired or in being at least invited for an interview by this firm, if you have not yet selected the other practice areas that you may have an interest in. So if you're flexible about the other practice areas, you can see the number of lawyers in each group and kind of tailor your cover letter toward the specific firm. This does not mean that if you hate tax, you should indicate that you love tax. But if you're open to trying, let's say, everything, and you cannot obviously list everything on your cover letter, you can narrow down to 2 or 3 other practice groups or other practice areas that you are interested in exploring. So you can say in your cover letter, I am primarily interested in IP, and these are some examples that justify my interest in IP, but at the same time, I'm open to trying, let's say, litigation and corporate commercial, because you see that the firm is actually very busy in these areas based on the number of lawyers that it has allocated to these areas. So this means that if the firm thinks that you're a great candidate, but the chances of you being hired in intellectual property are not that high, the firm can be like, well, this person might also be enjoying corporate commercial or like litigation because they have indicated an interest in those areas as well. If you can provide solid examples about why you're interested in the additional areas, the stronger your application will be. Just a quick note before you finalize your application package and you indicate these additional areas of interest. Law firms usually see candidates as fitting into 2 different areas. So they are reviewing your application package and saying, does this person fit into the transactional lawyer profile or the litigation profile? Because there's a different skill set involved in each practice area. So if you are interested in litigation, you can say that I'm also interested in intellectual property litigation or employment litigation. So these are areas that usually go together. But if you are a corporate lawyer, then you might be interested also in corporate commercial, financial services, capital markets, or tax. But so usually these are the groups of practice areas that usually go together. If you are more of a transactional lawyer, then you can maybe include a line that's saying I'm open to exploring litigation, but not necessarily saying that I don't know what I want to practice. I don't know if I want to be a transactional lawyer or a litigation lawyer. At least this distinction should be clear in your head. That you know why you're applying to those firms and you know that your primary area is transactional work or litigation work. So moving forward to why NALP is really useful is because it explains a bit further the recruitment and the hiring process. So you can see the number of first-year summer students and second-year summer students that were hired at the firm. You can see the firm has rotations to specific groups, and most firms usually for their summer program do not have rotations. They explain about the first-year summer program. The second-year summer student program is where foreign chain lawyers usually fit into. It explains the OCIs and the law firms that participate in. It breaks down the number of first year and second year summer students that were offered articling at the firm. Usually full service firms keep on their entire summer class, unless some of the students decide to pursue a clerkship. So it also explains the articling program and when students are usually invited to join the firm for articling. It's usually in the middle of your summer program. You're offered to continue as an articling student the following year. Some firms also offer internships, so you can see this information here in the foreign trained lawyers. Internships are a great way to start working for a firm, to become familiar with their practice areas, the lawyer in each group, and perhaps be on their radar when the OCI process begins, and hopefully have one or more of the lawyers review your application. It's always important for these lawyers to know your interest in advance, and working in the specific firm before the process begins can help you maximize your chances. Just be mindful that if you are working at a firm as an intern, being a foreign trained lawyer, when you are invited for interviews with other firms, there will always be a question, even if it's not asked, about why you are interviewing with other firms if you really love the firm that you are at. This is a question that you must be prepared to answer, because they will think that if you're really good, that firm will not let you go. So why are you applying to other firms? And if that firm doesn't really want to hire you, then you're perhaps not that good of a candidate after all. Keep in mind that if you are completing an internship with a law firm, these are questions that may be asked or may be considered by other employers. You can also see information about the application process, what's included, and you can see that they require a resume, cover letter, post-secondary transcripts, law school transcripts, and a list of upper year courses. So what does this mean? If you are a JD student, then obviously you're applying to the OCI process when you have usually completed your first year of law school, which means that you have your second and your third year ahead of you. And usually the first year has very general courses which do not really indicate an interest in a specific area. So by including a letter that explains which courses you have an interest in applying in the following years, you kind of solidify your interest in the specific practice areas that you have already informed the firm that you want to pursue. But if you are an LLM student and you have just started the LLM program and you have 2 or 3 more terms ahead of you, then you can include a letter that explains that I just started my LLM, but these are the courses that I plan to take, which explain why I'm interested in the areas that I've already indicated in my cover letter. And again, you see that the applications are submitted through the law portal. Another interesting insight is the number of articling students that the firm offered a first-year lawyer position. You can see that in 2020, that number was 7. And you can see that the number of students that were actually up for being hired as a first-year associate was actually 9. So that indicates the percentage of the student that was hired back as a first-year associate. You can see that firms usually, although they don't hire their entire articling class back as first-year associates, they usually supplement their first-year associate group by hiring laterally. This number usually shows that the firm had a need that it had not anticipated, or that the articling students that were up for the first-year associate position had indicated areas that did not align with the firm's needs. So this means that the firm staffed different practice needs based on the number of students that they had already working for them, and the fact that more students were in the pool means that either the interest was not there to pursue those areas, or in the worst case scenario that the firm didn't want to hire back those students for different reasons. You can see, for example, that one of the students that wasn't hired back, it was out of choice because that student decided to go on and pursue a clerkship. Now, let's move on to lawyer demographics. You can see the size of the firm. The current demographic data is something when I was applying I paid attention to. You can see here the ratio of male and female lawyers, and usually other firms give you statistics on how many are equity and non-equity partners. This information is useful because you see how, for example, if you're a woman, you can see how many women you can find in equity partnership roles, and that gives you a perspective into how diverse the firm may be. Although, speaking from experience, when you are interviewing with these firms, it's a good idea to leave hard questions out. For example, why aren't you hiring more women in an equity partner role? This information is for you to gain the insight, but not necessarily to ask these questions during the interview, because you may be perceived as a very hard candidate. You can see the number of associates and articling students, and again, the ratio between male and female. You see now that a lot of firms have included a non-binary category for candidates who indicate so. Let's go to compensation and benefits. Now you can see the salary of a first year summer student and of a second year summer student. You can see the listed benefits. You can see if the firm actually covers for your licensing process. Usually some firms pay the indicated by the Law Society 10-day period for you to study for your bar exams. Although you obviously will be studying more than 10 days, this is what the Law Society has prescribed. Many firms pay this amount when you start articling, although most students write their bar exams before they start articling. You can see the first year associate salary and if the firm offers annual bonuses, which is again based on your hours. You can also see the list of benefits that the firm offers and if they offer a fitness subsidy. So let's go to partnership and advancement. Here you can find information about how many years will it take you to become an equity partner. Usually most firms before the equity partnership stage have an income partnership stage. Usually full service firms have now 7 or 8 or even 9 or 10 years of a requirement for you to work for them before you're considered as an income partner. And usually it's a 2 or 3 years after that that you may be considered for an equity partner. And again, this only refers to the method of how your compensation is going to be calculated on. With respect to professional development, you can see whether the firm offers coaching or mentoring, whether they offer internal CLEs, which refers to continuing legal education programs, and whether they can sponsor you to attend external CLEs, which is very useful if you want to attend an event that can cost thousands of dollars. Let's go to pro bono. So this explains if the firm has a pro bono policy and if you would track your pro bono time. Usually all firms have targets about the billable time that you're supposed to meet. And you can see here that your time spent on pro bono files is given to you as a credit, as a billable time. And the last part, diversity and inclusion. Here you can see initiatives that the firm is participating in with respect to diversity and inclusion. This is a good question to ask during the interviews, or perhaps indicate based on what you find in this page that you being hired aligns with the firm's diversity and inclusion initiatives because you come with a very diverse background, having worked in different industries or having completed your studies in a different country. So that was the overview of NALP, and I encourage everyone to use it because these insights can be helpful to even start a conversation with one of the lawyers at each firm. It shows initiative if you have already done your research and not relied only on what the firm indicates on their website. So by having done your research, you're already ahead of the competition. So these are great insights to access before you apply to a specific firm. It's a great starting point if you are interested in meeting more lawyers at a given law firm to show them that you have done your research and you want to ask some follow-up questions instead of asking questions that you can find either on the firm website or on other resources like NALP. So my advice is that if you're sold on the practice area that you want to practice in, that's great. Provide concrete examples about why you want to continue grow in that area. But at the same time, if you're applying to full service firms and you know that you won't necessarily be doing only that type of work, then show them that you're flexible enough to try areas that they may have the most need for. And you can find this information in NALP, where you can see the number of lawyers allocated for specific practice groups, which indicates how busy these groups are. Good luck with your applications, and don't forget to comment if you have any questions.